Good evening. We're going to get started in about 60 seconds. But before we get started, I'm going to ask everyone to move to these two aisles here because we're going to be on the news and we want it to look like we've got a packed house. So if y'all could just be so kind as to come and sit in the center two aisles, we greatly appreciate it. Can you all hear me? Oh, there. Ooh. All right. Good evening. My name is Clorinda Jones Turner, and I'm the Executive Director for the Greater Peace Community Development Corporation. We are a 501c3 nonprofit organization that was founded in 2000 by my father, Reverend Clifford E. Jones. The Greater Peace Community Development Corporation works tirelessly to provide quality and affordable housing, quality and affordable child care, educational opportunities for youth and adults, assist with combating food insecurities, and providing resources needed to low and moderate income families living in East Alabama. Tonight's program, in partnership with Worthy Squared, is an educational opportunity for parents, guardians, law enforcement, educators, and anyone who works with or takes care of children at any capacity. It is our hope and prayer that the things you learn tonight will help keep you and your loved ones safe and out of the hands of those who prey on them. Please note that some of the information tonight will be sensitive and graphic. If you have children here tonight and you feel like the information is a little bit too much for them, you're welcome to go to the fellowship hall located right back here. They can grab a cookie, some chips, hang out for a little bit with you as their supervisor, and then you can bring them back in when you feel it's a good time. Bathrooms, the ladies' bathroom is out of this door down this hall here. Men's bathroom is down this hall right here to my left. Right. At this time, Reverend Clifford E. Jones will come and open us up in prayer.
Let me just to welcome each of you and thank you for coming to be a part of this important workshop tonight. Let's pray together. Father, we are grateful to you for, first of all, just allowing us this privilege together tonight. Thank you, Father, for these who will come and impart knowledge to us, and I pray that you will open our minds and our hearts to hear and receive what is being shared. Help us, our Father, to work together to protect those who are vulnerable among us. Teach us what we need to do, how to do it, when to do it, And Father, give us the courage to do it. We thank you that you love us and you have provided and met every need that we have, and you will do so tonight in this presentation. We need to hear, we need to understand, so give us your wisdom, and we'll give you our thanks for what you're going to do. Bless now and all that takes place. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
All right. It gives me great pleasure to introduce our presenters for the evening. Catherine Guthrie. Wave, Catherine. Catherine is the founder of Worthy Squared, a ministry dedicated to the intervention and prevention of sex trafficking and human exploitation. Catherine began her work protecting our children in 2008 after spending 2 months in Vietnam. There she saw firsthand the devastation of commercial sex trafficking and human exploitation. Upon returning home, she began doing research and realized our country, our state, and our community were not immune to this form of modern-day slavery. She began volunteering with Redeem, an anti-sex trafficking organization based out of Columbus, Georgia, before starting her own organization dedicated to protecting and saving children in Alabama. Catherine continues to advocate for adults and juvenile victims through recovery, restoration, and education. Let's welcome Catherine Guthrie. Our second presenter for the evening is Teresa Collier. Teresa holds a bachelor's degree in biology and psychology and a master's in homeland security and emergency management. She has an extensive background and has worked as an intelligence analyst with the Alabama State Law Enforcement Agency, assisting federal, state, and local law enforcement with human sex trafficking cases. In 2016, she developed a national training program for the Fusion Center's human trafficking analyst. Additionally, she has conducted statewide training for Alabama state troopers and has served as a law enforcement trainer for the Child Trafficking Solutions Project in 2018. Currently, Teresa is a child forensic interview specialist and has interviewed numerous children and adult victims of human sex trafficking. Ms. Collier has received numerous awards and is committed to stopping sex trafficking and human exploitation. Let us welcome Ms. Collier. Detective Brian Goza was supposed to be with us today. I'm going to let Teresa let you guys know why he's not here today, but just know that he is out protecting our youth. I'm going to turn this over to them, and then I'll come back at the end with remarks.
Police Department. You want me to use that, don't you? Okay. We work with Opelika Police Department. They have been very proactive in this. We actually recognized them last week at the City Council meeting for their work in to eradicate sex trafficking and human trafficking in our area. So this does not discriminate. Anybody is a potential victim. It doesn't discriminate for race, socioeconomic, Nothing. Education, anybody is vulnerable to this. And this year, we really have been called for the prevention side of it. We had done some of these events pre-COVID, and then we're shut down from it, and we will continue to do these now through the year. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and just do an introduction before Teresa starts. Okay, I'm just challenged. Okay, so behind the screen, who's really there? You know, our kids, and I mean, we're guilty of it too, are obsessed with devices. And it used to be, were we allowed to ride around our bike around the block, you know, around the neighborhood. But when you get in front of a computer screen, and when our children and grandchildren get in front of a computer screen, they are exposed to the entire world out there. You can go to the next one. So, we lock our doors, but we don't lock our devices. Teresa's going to get into how many kids actually have cell phones and those ages. Okay. It only takes 8 minutes for a predator to bond with your child online. They are looking for validation. It's no longer who they are in Christ, which is what we really, really try to raise them with. It's how many followers and how many likes did they get on that post. And I'm talking 10-year-old kids, some even younger. These numbers here, I want y'all to look. Can y'all see that, where the 3 stars are? So this is online exploitation. This is through NCMEC, which is the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. Look at the increase in 2021 to 2022, third line down. Online enticement for children for sex acts. So it doubled. So these numbers started going up in COVID because everybody was at home and everybody was on computers. They were doing online school. And then the two down, unsolicited, obscene material sent to a child. Look at that, from 5,177 in 2021 to 35,000 in 2022. And that bottom number, the 32 million, that's how many online incidents were reported in 2022. It's pretty scary, isn't it? NCMEC said there was 4 million online predators discovered in the US alone in 2022. They are after our kids. It's just fact. Okay, next one. All right, and now I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you, guys. Thanks for being here tonight. So, I used to work for the Alabama Law Enforcement Agency, and I was a human trafficking analyst there, and I worked on local, state, and federal human trafficking cases. In 2020, right at the beginning of COVID, I left, and I started working with the Child Trafficking Solutions Project, still training law enforcement on how to investigate child trafficking cases. But since 2014, since way before I left Aaliyah, I've been a forensic interviewer. And does anybody know what that means? Do y'all know what a child forensic interview specialist does? So I interview kids that are victims of crime or witnesses of crime. And most of the crimes are going to be sex and or physical abuse. And so through my work as a forensic interviewer, I have interviewed a lot of juvenile trafficking victims. I've interviewed quite a few child trafficking victims. And anyway, it's just a lot of people don't really understand how prevalent all of that is, because a lot of times it's not even reported in the media. For every one media report that you see about either trafficking, online solicitation, that sort of thing, there are 5 or 6 other cases that you don't hear anything about. So the problem, even though you're seeing all those reports and all those media reports every single day, multiply all that by 5, 6, 7. That's how many incidents that are happening throughout the day, throughout the year here in Alabama. So it's happening quite a bit. So our goals for today's presentation to educate, you on what the issues are, to equip you with preventative steps and talking points to help you guys. Like, I'm a grandparent. My kids are grown and they're in their 30s and 40s, but I have grandchildren from age 4 months all the way up to 15. And so I need to know all this as much as, my kids do who have those kids, So, and we're going to give you some tools and resources. We're not just going to stand up here and tell you what the problem is and, be scared about this. We're going to give you the tools and resources that you need so that you can help prevent what might happen to your kids, okay? So that's what our goals are today. So, let's see. Are we going to do this now or later? Let's do it later, okay? Okay. This is just it's a video we're going to show you in just a minute. So how prevalent, what's the prevalence of kids having cell phones? 42% of kids have cell phones by the age of 10, almost half. 71% by the age of 12, and 91% by the age of 14. And those are statistics from the Child Mind Institute. And so, let me talk about this real quick. When do you guys think there was a convergence of cell phones with the internet? Does anybody know what year that was? A lot of people might not think about it, but okay, so Facebook started in 2004, and LinkedIn was an early online platform also. So there's several platforms like between 2004 and 2008 that are still in existence today. 2008 was when Apple had the first apps on their phone, and that's when we saw the convergence of the internet and social media platforms with cell phones. My youngest child graduated from high school in 2008. Okay, so my kids didn't even grow up in that time frame when they could get on their phones all the time and look at their Facebook pages and that sort of thing. So those of you in here that are in your 30s and 40s, y'all never experienced that either, but your kids are, right? Your kids are. Our kids were born into a digital age that we don't really understand. Like, my 3-year-old, as soon as she gets in my car, she wants to start looking at my phone. And they know how to do this. Yeah. They do. So, here's the thing about it. They were not born. They don't live in a bubble. They weren't born in a bubble. We can't turn back the hands of time. It is what it is. And they are navigating things that we never even thought we would have to navigate. The world is in their hand, in their pocket. And for us, gosh, I was in college before I really understand what was going on in the world, all the stuff that's going on. But our kids, from a very early age, they have all that information. It's hard to navigate. I talk to kids all day long, and a lot of them are worried about stuff. I'll give you an example. I had a little boy. He was a victim of physical abuse. He was 10 years old. And so I'm talking to him, and in the middle of our conversation, where he was telling me what all his stepdad had done to him, he said to me, "Did you hear about those kids in Texas that got killed?" And I said, "Yes, I did." I said, "I heard about that." I said, "How does that make you feel?" He said, it makes me feel afraid because my dad has guns and he's really mad at us right now. And so our kids hear these stories, they see it online, and so they're navigating a lot. There's a lot for them to deal with. And I don't want to talk to anybody about our kids in this generation from, infants all the way up to high school, because I think they're awesome. They are awesome because they have empathy for other people. I'm telling you things based on the kids that I talk to. They have empathy. They're very knowledgeable about what's happening in the world. And even though bad things have happened to them, a lot of times they're still hopeful about stuff. And they're resilient. Now, don't get me talking about the adults that do bad stuff to them and the adults that put them in situations where they get abused. Don't have me talk about that. I think this generation is awesome, and I love these kids. I love them. Okay, let's go on. Okay, so we need to shift how we talk about pornography. It's actually child sex abuse material. I still see reports in the news all the time about images of kids, and they call it child pornography. Adult pornography is legal, isn't it? So when you say child pornography, a lot of people are like, well, maybe that's legal. But it's not legal. It's child sex abuse material. 20% of all internet pornography or child sex abuse material involves children, and it's illegal. More than 20,000 new CSAM images of kids are posted weekly. 70% of kids between the ages of 8 and 18 have encountered pornography online. 90% of children between the ages of 8 and 16 have seen online pornography. 90%. What happened during COVID as far as a lot of our kids came home with Chromebooks, didn't they? So I'll tell you about some cases we had in Dallas County, which is the Selma area, where those Chromebooks that have safety features on them, did you know that the schools have to activate them before they actually work? Did y'all know that? Does anybody in here have kids who accidentally got on sites they weren't supposed to be on because they weren't activated? Those safety features weren't activated. In Selma, most of the schools down there did not activate safety features on Chromebooks, and we had an explosion of cases. So I tell people now, you need to be calling your school and asking them about those Chromebooks those kids bring home. Have you activated safety features on there? Like, what if you have a kid that comes in the middle of the year and they have one of those Chromebooks back there, and maybe the technology person isn't there that day, but just go ahead and give it to them. That kid might have something. Maybe they activated all the others, but you got a kid that came a little bit later. Those are the kind of questions as parents you need to be asking. If you're a guardian or a parent, you need to be asking those types of questions of your school, because for a lot of my kids that I interviewed kind of in the Black Belt region of the state, a lot of them did not even have devices like that until COVID. And now they're online all the time. And they're doing what all their other friends are doing, right? Online. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, they know. Just ask them. Where are these images coming from? 1 in 5 indecent images of children shared online were taken by the child themselves. That might be because the person who they're communicating with on a social media platform is grooming them and telling them to take those pictures. It may be a kid who has a crush in middle school, and all of her friends are sending nude photos around to their crushes and their boyfriends, so she's going to do the same thing. Or maybe that boyfriend said, hey, if you want me to like you, I need a picture of you, and she does it. Or maybe the girl says to the boy the same thing. It's not just girls doing it, it's boys too. So this is so rampant that in most CACs, we don't even do these cases anymore. The schools typically know about it. They'll just take the phones up, delete all the images on there, and they just let the SRO handle it. So it's really not, it happens so much that if you tried to investigate every single case of a kid sending another kid pornographic images, that we wouldn't have time to do anything else. There wouldn't be any time to do anything else. I can remember when it was just high school kids doing it. A few years later, it was mostly middle school kids doing it. Now we're seeing it in the elementary schools.
Can I interject for one thing?
Sure.
We had 2 weeks ago 2 12-year-old girls. They're in the 5th grade. One of them was recruited by a 27-year-old male on Instagram. Now, she thought that this was going to be her new boyfriend. And because there's this, they groom them. They're alienated from their families. They're not happy. They're alienated from their friends. And she snuck out of her house to go meet him. She was missing for about 36 hours. And what she thought was going to be consensual, which you cannot have consensual with a 12-year-old child, but in her mind, got very ugly very quickly. She's safe, but her life has changed forever. And during that investigation, her friend had been uploading pictures to another app. Now, Instagram, I mean, we give our kids Instagram. If somebody told me it was time to go ahead and let my daughter have it, I think. Teresa did. And but we have to be careful. This girl, her friend was uploading pictures on an app called Kick, and the guy was getting the Cash App money. 5th grade. And that's not actually right here, but it's very close to here. But anytime somebody goes and a girl or a boy goes missing, what are they saying? They went to go meet someone they met online. And when we refer to a child here, it's from as young as young. Really, we're seeing this starting in middle school now, but up to 17, 18, 19. So.
Thank you, Catherine. Okay. Sexting and sextortion. Sexting is creating, sending, yes. A bit closer, like right here, right up under my. Okay. So I've had strep throat, and I'm getting over strep throat. So my voice is a little weak like right now, so I will definitely do that. Okay, so sexting is creating, sending, or sharing sexual images, messages, or videos with friends, people they know, people they met online. Sextortion is blackmail. That's when somebody has sent an image and then somebody else comes back and says, if you don't send me more, or if you don't send me money, or if you don't do this or that, I'm going to share it with everybody. I'm going to share it with your family, going to share it with your friends, whatever. Both of those are illegal. They're both illegal. And it starts early with our kids that have phones. Like I said, a girl that has a crush, and she's texting with her crush, and he's like, look, I'm getting bored. Just send me a picture. Send me a picture of yourself. So she does. She sends it. Because all of her friends are doing it, and like, you know, everybody's doing it, so why not just do it? 80% of victims who are sextorted, 80% of victims who were extorted the same day that they had contact with somebody online. Typically, extortion comes from outside. It's probably not going to be that crush that the girl is sending pictures to. It's probably going to be that online predator she met on Instagram or another social media platform, and she may think he's her age, or he may think she is his age, but in fact, it's not. It's a nefarious person who is trying to get those videos and photos of that kid so they can extort them for money. We saw an explosion of this during COVID. It was mostly boys that were being sextorted. These kids thinking they're talking to another teenage girl. They send a photo, and then all of a sudden they get a message, if you don't send us a certain amount of money, $5,000, we're gonna send this out to everybody. And the kid's like, I don't have $5,000. Well, send us $1,000. well, I don't have $1,000. And it would go down until they got to an amount that the kid would actually send to them. Or if the kid didn't have any money at all, there were several cases of death by suicide where kids were so afraid that these images were going to send out to people that they knew. I heard one lady do a presentation, her 18-year-old son who was about to go off to college. He went to bed that night. He just visited the school that he was going to go to college to, had dinner with them, went to bed, was going to get up early the next morning. From the time he went to bed until the next morning at 7 o'clock when her husband walked out the door and he's hanging from the window. He's hung himself. And after they did forensics on his phone, he started talking to somebody about 8:30 that night, and he was extorted over that short period of time. And he was so afraid he was going to lose his scholarship because these images got out that he killed himself. So, 78% of our victims are extorted for more images. 5% of victims were extorted to have sexual contact with a predator. Like, you better meet up with me, or these pictures are going to everybody. So I just talked about the boy problem that we had during COVID. And that was really something that was kind of new to everybody. We had not had that many cases in Alabama until COVID started. And then all of a sudden, the FBI has a ton of cases where boys are being extorted for money. Typically, girls are extorted for more images, and boys are extorted for money. But now we're seeing girls that are also extorted for money as well, especially if they're online with somebody that they don't really know. They think it's somebody else, but it's really a nefarious character or somebody from another country. We see a lot of these extortion schemes coming from countries overseas. And there's not much our law enforcement can do about that. So, because most of the countries we don't have agreements with that we can, actually go over there and arrest those people. So what are the dangers for our kids? Psycho-emotional harm, reputational harm, like I was talking about with the kid that had a scholarship, eating disorders, learning deficits, depression, drug abuse, self-harm, all that stuff. If you start sexting, and sextortion is the biggest. So our victims, our kids that come in and talk to us, and they talk about what's happened to them. And these are the things they report. They report shame and guilt. They report being bullied due to their classmates finding out that they've sent images. Eating disorders. We see kids cutting, causing self-harm. A lot of depression and drug abuse. Family issues stemming from the incident, and fear of retaliation. So those are just some of the things that we hear kids talking about when they come in and talk about those cases. We don't have a law that addresses kids sexting each other. All of our laws, when it comes to sexting, fall under the felony codes in Alabama for producing and receiving child pornography. Okay? So, if somebody really wanted to address something, if, let's say, your son gets a picture from his friend of his girlfriend and he goes, oh, I need to send this to my friend. What's that called? Distribution of child pornography. And guess what? He can be charged with that too. So a lot of our kids don't know that. It's doubtful that's going to happen, but if somebody really got a bee in their bonnet, or if it's a kid whose parent's going to make a real big fuss about it, yeah, it could absolutely happen. And our kids need to know that when we're talking to our kids, that this is against the law, and that you can actually be charged for this. So that's one thing to talk with them about. So what are some of the common tactics that we see to entice kids? When a kid gets online and somebody, excuse me, starts to engage them in sexual conversation or role playing really early, that's going to be a red flag. Asking the child for sexually explicit images of themselves or sharing an image. A lot of times what I see are these people that will sext a picture to a kid and then say, well, I sent you that, you need to send me something back. So a lot of times what we see are those images that come to them first before that person even asks for anything from them. I have seen more pictures of men's private parts than I care to talk about. They're out there everywhere. Developing a rapport through compliments, discussing common interests, that sort of thing. A lot, most teenagers, they have problems with their parents, right? Because their parents don't let them do this, and they don't let them do that, and all that. Well, people they're talking to online, they know that. Your parents are just mean to you, and they shouldn't be treating you that way. And it's not too hard to engage a kid in a conversation where that kid is all of a sudden really talking to a predator and really exchanging personal information with that person. Going on to other things that we see, the most common tactics, sending or offering sexually explicit images of themselves, pretending to be younger, offering an incentive such as a gift card, alcohol, drugs, lodging, transportation, or food. So a trend that we're seeing a lot right now are these predators who are sending packages through Amazon to kids. There's a case right now in Alabama that started with a little girl during COVID. It's not far from my house where I live. And her mama had to work. She was at home online, and she had 2 younger siblings. And this guy, who was also at home because it was COVID and he wasn't working, he said to her, hey, you want to make some money? And she's like, yeah, I want to make some money. So he said, well, send me some pictures. And he told her what she needed to send, and I'll sell them, and I will send you like a present. And so she did it, and he was sending her cheap stuff like plastic jewelry and stuff like that. And it was coming through Amazon. He sent her packages. And he was taking those photos, uploading them to a Dropbox, and charging his friends $400 to look at them. So yeah, he was making money, but she was getting plastic jewelry in exchange for that. So there was this conversation about how maybe this really isn't a trafficking case. There was never any physical contact between this kid and this man. But there were 2 things that happened that made it a trafficking case. If there is an exchange of something of value, even if it's an image and it's not a sexual act, even if it's an image, 2 things that happened. He sent her something of value, cheap plastic necklaces, and then he charged his friends to look at the photos. If you have that something of value in exchange for a sex act or a sex image, then it's a trafficking case. And it is a trafficking case, but I had to go out there and find cases in other states before the attorneys would say, okay, we need to make this a trafficking case. You just tell everybody you know. It doesn't have to be a hands-on offense. It does not have to be, as long as there's an exchange of something of value. Okay, what do our kids do that make them more vulnerable to being exploited online? Well, if they lie about being older. Some of our social media platforms, you have to be a certain age. You think our kids don't get on there and say, yeah, I'm 17, and they're 10 years old? Initiating communication and offering something in exchange with predators for, like a kid might say to a person that they've just met online, hey, I'll send you a picture if you'll send this to me. Some of our kids do that. So they're just opening themselves up to exploitation. And sending explicit photos or videos of oneself to another user. We've been talking about that. This drives me crazy. How many times have you seen this in the newspaper, on the news, and you're like, oh my gosh, I gotta remember all these apps, right? I'm gonna tell you something. There are 2.5 million apps on the Apple App Store. 2.5 million, and you need to remember that any of those apps, if they're connected to the internet, they can be used to solicit your kid. So forget about that. Just forget about it. You can't remember all that anyway. I can't. You just remember, if your kid can get on the internet with an app, it can be used against them. All right, I'm going to show you a case I worked on with Brian, who's not here tonight. We would have talked about it together, but he got called out on a case. This was a case that we worked about. It was the spring of COVID, so that would be April 2020. So we had a juvenile who met this guy playing Fight Arena online. So you have these video games where kids get online and they're playing with other people. Most of the time they don't know them. They meet on Fight Arena, and he created a circle in Life 360, and he added her to his circle. How many of you use Life 360 as a safety app for your family? Yeah. Did y'all know it has a chat feature on it? Did y'all know that? Have you guys ever chatted through Life 360 with anybody? It has a chat feature. Well, this guy knew it. So he adds her to his circle. He starts telling her what kinds of images he wants her to send him. And she started sending it to him. And she was 15 years old. When she turned 16, he told her to get in her new car that she just got for her birthday. And he put her on the road to Ohio, where he lived. He tracked her using Life 360 all the way up to where he worked. She got there about 2 o'clock in the morning, so she slept in her car until he got there at 6. He walks out of his office, walks to her car, gets in the car with her. There's a sex act that happens. And then he put her on the road back home again. And he used Life 360 to do all of that. Now, we identified him. He was a married man, had 2 kids. He was a wrestling coach at the high school. So, they would not prosecute him in Ohio for what happened there. Does anybody know why they wouldn't prosecute him? How old was she? Age of consent is 16 in Ohio, just like it is here. It shouldn't be. Do you know what the age of majority is here in Alabama? Anybody know? The age that Alabama says you are legally an adult, do you know what that age is? It's 19. It's 18 years old. Almost everywhere else in the United States and Alabama, it's 19. It's 19 in Nebraska. It's 21 in Mississippi. There are 3 states where it's not 18 years old. Yet, 16 is the age of consent. So we don't think our kids can make decisions for themselves. They can't sign a lease on an apartment. But it's okay at 16. They're okay to decide they can have sex, right? With anybody they choose. Does anybody wonder about that? About why? Why is it 16 years old? I say let's change that. All right, I talked about the Chromebooks and about how the schools have to turn on the safety features for them to work. So I had a case, little girl, 11 years old, she comes in. She had been communicating with 2 adult men on Chromebook. Both of them traveled to her hometown, picked her up, took her out for Zaxby's, then took her to a parking lot, a vacant parking lot somewhere. Sex act takes place, and then they bring her back home again. All through a Chromebook. She had never even had an electronic device before. I interviewed tons of kids that had Chromebooks. They were watching YouTube at night. They were watching pornographic shows and videos and stuff like that, because the schools forgot to turn the safety features on, or they didn't have somebody to turn them on. So you parents, y'all better go to your school and say, or call them up and say, hey, my kid has a Chromebook. Have y'all turned those safety features on those Chromebooks? Okay.
Before you go to that, can I just kind of interject?
Yeah.
So, all right, so I'm going to tell y'all some things that have happened here that I have personally been involved with and I've seen. First of all, when my daughter, I have a 16-year-old daughter, God has a sense of humor, she got Instagram. So we're real big on making sure that everybody's account is private. Well, every single app out there has a chat feature. So when I'm telling my daughter that her profile picture has to be of her dog and not her, because she is Asian, which is a thing, so I'm constantly going, change your picture, change your picture, change your picture. So one morning, about 3 o'clock in the morning, I'm like, I need to go look at her phone, because I'm all up in her business all the time. And I drive her crazy, but I had not looked at it for about probably 10 days. It had been a week, because I go and I look at her phone, and she has a public Instagram account. She has 1,072 followers in less than 10 days. I start looking at those followers. There are very few females. There are some of the strangest, scariest, meanest, weird-looking males on there, like whole bald head alligator in tattoos, AK-47s, and I'm literally thinking I'm going to be sick. But God was very good, because I never raised my voice. And she came out and she sees me with her phone and she goes, I'm in trouble, aren't I? And I'm going, well, I don't really know. Who is this? Because her profile picture is of this child that I can't even believe that that's my daughter. And I start looking through this account, and they're all doing TikTok dances, which are not inappropriate unless you're a predator watching a 14-year-old girl do a TikTok dance. And I say, but you don't have TikTok. And she says, well, I watch it on YouTube. You should have been more specific. So, okay. And then she tells me it's her phone. Y'all, that is not their phone. If your mama and your daddy are still paying for your phone, for their phone, that's my phone. And if I want to take that phone out in my driveway and run over it with my car because I am not happy, I'm going to do that. And then do you want to know when you're going to get it back? How's it never work for you? So we go through this, and she's really kind of being defiant. So I am more and more alarmed the more I look. And it was obvious that she was just accepting these follows. And the reason they're doing it is because there's her smiling Asian face doing these transition things they do, the video where they come up like this and they smile, and she had just gotten her braces off. And she's a beautiful girl. So I get with some law enforcement friends, and I say, I'm freaking out. And they said, we're not checking 1,072 followers. I said, spot check. They spot checked 150. 27 out of 150 were registered sex offenders. They are watching my daughter in her room with her friends online doing TikTok dances. So when I showed her that, she was stunned. I said, did anybody try to message you? Well, yeah, but I blocked them. And I said, did anybody send you any pictures? And she burst into tears. I never made her tell me, because I already knew the answer. And it was a real good learning experience. Also, the fact that her profile picture, when she was going to go apply at Publix at 14, and they look up her name, that stuff never goes away. So, I mean, they don't think about this. People think Snapchat goes away. It doesn't go away. I mean, because we can subpoena Snapchat when we have a trafficking case. I told you all about the 12-year-old girls. There's a girl right before Christmas, young girl here in this area. She went off the grid in 9th grade, and she's been out there. She's 17 now. She is safe, but she went to go meet somebody she met online. This girl has been in and out of trafficking situations for the last 2 years. I mean, it happens all the time here. Gaming, okay? Boys really game more, but I know a lot of girls that game. Get a call from a friend of mine. Her son's playing Minecraft and Roblox. They have chat features. Roblox is a portal, if I'm not, to millions of apps, of other sites, pornographic sites, everything. So if they're playing with somebody they don't know, as in you don't know where they go to school, who their parents are, where they go to church, they don't need to be playing with them because they post the high scores. So her son was really good. He got some messages. Hey, you got high score. I saw that. Can you give me some tips? He thinks it's another 14-year-old boy. Well, it wasn't. She saw some inappropriate texting. She tells him to uninstall it. So he sticks it behind this app called Calculator, reinstalls it, unbeknownst to her. And about 6 weeks later, he comes running out with his phone because of a picture he's been sent. She calls me. You know, if you can get the IP address, screenshot it, all that. It was a 49-year-old man in Gunnersville, Alabama. So they're playing the numbers. When you've got 4 million predators, and this is all what we talk about is only what's reported. So we have no idea how big the problem is. So it's very easy to sit here and think, oh, well, that was there, or that was there, or that doesn't happen here. We've been boots on the ground for 7 years here, and I can tell y'all, it happens here. Hardly a week goes by that we don't get a call about somebody. And so it's really serious. And we have got to understand that we cannot continue to say, oh, that's going to happen to somebody else's kid. Because my daughter and her friends will go, oh, Miss Catherine, you're just, why do you have to be like this? We would never do that until you do. Because at some point, they're going to think it's a 16 or 17-year-old boy. We have a girl, this will be my last one, November of 2022. I got a call in August, somebody's child was missing. She went to school around here. They had not been able to find her. In November, so we called in Kate Riley with HSI to try to find her. She disappeared in Columbus. She was from here. She'd gone to church here, but she was living in Phoenix City with her mom. And if a child's running, they're running from something. She was a chronic runaway. I get a call November of 2022 with a picture, and I'm in Target with my daughter. They said, is this her? This child is 14 years old at the time, and she is in a hotel room in Georgia. And she had been trafficked in Alabama, Florida, and Georgia. And how'd she meet him? She went to meet somebody she met online. And this is a girl from, nice girl, nice family. It does not discriminate. So we really have to just be aware that it's not just happening in other places. So that's my soapbox.
Okay, are y'all scared yet? People are like, oh my God, I'm going to lock my kid up until they're 18 years old, or 19. Okay, but we're going to get to some things you can do, some resources for you so you don't have to be worried all the time. But this is our biggest emerging threat right now, artificial intelligence. So I did a presentation in, I guess it was back in November, and there was one report out of New Jersey of middle school kids that had used an AI app to superimpose some of their girlfriends' images on nude bodies, okay? And I'm like, it's coming. I'm telling y'all it's coming. 1 month later, did you guys see this in the news? In Demopolis, there's a case in Demopolis. There are more cases that are happening right now in Alabama. They're using these deep fake phone apps. These are just a few of them that are out there. There's a ton of them out there. Here's what the problem is. We don't have any legislation in our state to address this. There's only a handful of states that actually have legislation to address artificial intelligence and how it's being used nefariously. So Steve Marshall has teamed up with a legislator, I can't remember what his name is, but they're going to try to come up with something to pass so that we can actually deal with this. But until that happens, we don't have anything. And if they're not addressing the people who are making these apps and not just the people using them, it's really not going to do a whole lot of good. So it needs to be a really strong law. So I'm telling you guys this because I want you to call your legislators or the AG's office and you tell them we need to have the strongest law possible that's going to deal with the people who are making these apps as well as those people who are using them, because that's the only way to really address it. Okay, talking to kids about online safety and sexting. The biggest thing you need to tell them, if it could get you in trouble in public, then it's going to get you in trouble if you do it online. Could this get you in trouble with the law? Who might get hurt or embarrassed by what you're doing and saying? Does it give any information about me or another person that shouldn't be shared, like where you live, how old that person is, that sort of thing? What does this content say about the kind of person I am? And is that the way I want people to see me? And how could this impact my future opportunities, scholarships, college acceptance, that sort of thing? So when I worked at Aaliyah, when we got applications for people for police officers and stuff like that, working at DOC, those types of things, we would do background checks and social media checks.
What's the first thing you do if you're going to hire somebody? I go to their social media.
Yeah. And a lot of companies are doing that. Colleges are doing that. There are companies out there, that's what they do for colleges. When they get applicants for their school, they hire somebody to do a social media check on that kid. If they're out there doing and saying things that they don't think is appropriate, then they're not going to get accepted, or they might not get that scholarship they thought they were going to get. So kids need to be aware of that, and always tell a trusted adult. It doesn't have to be a parent, because a lot of times a kid won't tell a parent, but they might tell a counselor, they might tell a teacher, they might tell somebody else, a minister, a youth counselor, something like that, somebody that they trust, and you let them know it's okay. It doesn't have to be you, but tell somebody. Just tell somebody about what's happening. And then when we're talking to them about the people they're talking to online, are they constantly trying to contact you? That new person that you met, and by the way, she was talking about how many followers her daughter had. You know what these kids are doing, don't you? We're in the influencer culture. How many people online have all these followers, and these companies send them tons of stuff, because they got all these followers. So that's how companies are doing their marketing now. They send stuff to influencers who use it online, review it online. Our kids are doing that too. They're thinking about that too. Ask them, what does that person want to talk about? Are they constantly complimenting you?
Well, and just a side note, when my daughter did that, she'd been going through a really hard time. We'd switched schools. She had been bullied. She'd been targeted by a teacher. So she wasn't in a good place, and I didn't realize what a bad place she was in. But she had been dared. What her friend said, I bet you can't do this and get 1,000 followers, over 1,000 followers in 30 days. And she was proud, because she had done it in less than 10. So there's a lot of that competition going on out there with them also.
And this person that you're talking to, are they asking you to meet up? Do they want to meet up with you? In red, down there. Reasons teens don't want to talk to an adult. They worry the adult will overreact, and the number one thing is, my parents will take my phone away. They're going to take my tablet away. I'm not going to tell because they'll take it all away from me. You need to have an agreement with your kid. If they come to you and they tell you something about what they've seen online or somebody trying to contact them, what's going on online, you need to have an agreement with them that you're not going to punish them where everything gets taken away. And people are like, oh, well, I've got to do that. Have that talk up front. Go ahead and have that talk. So that when it does happen, your kid will come to you and tell you what's happening. Wouldn't you rather your kid do that? Yeah? And then you have that conversation about, okay, if it does happen, these are some things we're going to have to do to limit who these people are who are trying to contact you. And you give them the resource. You tell them how to do that. And I'm going to give you some resources about how to do that in just a second. But that's the number one reason. The number one reason kids tell me they didn't tell somebody is because they're afraid they'll get their phone or their tablet taken away from them.
Well, we have one with my daughter. I mean, we have a deal, and after that happened, I said, you should have told me, but she needed to know she had a safe place to land. She needed to know because I tend to overreact, and like I said, I'm all up in her stuff. And so she needed to know there wasn't going to be a consequence. The consequence comes when I find out something and I wasn't told about it. And even if she's out with friends, they are not going to say, no, I'm not staying here if y'all are vaping. I'm not staying here if y'all are drinking. I'm not staying here if y'all are smoking. So we have a code. And if she texts me that code, and we've had to do it, the deal is that I will text her or call her and say, there is a family emergency. I need you home now. Are you okay to drive, or do you want me to come get you? And then she can get herself out of that situation and come home. And I've told her no questions asked. But the time it happened, she told me what was going on, and I was very proud of her for leaving. And 3 friends came with her. I said, y'all don't have a family emergency. And they said, yeah, but we needed to get out of there, and she was our ride. So they really need to know, like me not overreacting with her with that Instagram situation, that was just a lot of prayer and me knowing that if I did overreact and I had made the really big consequences like running over her phone, that she wasn't going to, that was going to ruin that she wasn't going to come to me. So it's really important that they know that we are not going to overreact.
And you cannot have a one and done conversation. You can't sit your 7-year-old down and say, okay, these are your social media safety rules, and we're going to go over them right now. And then, when they're 10 and they haven't heard another word from you that whole time, well, I had that talk with them. It's a constant conversation. You got to be talking about it all the time. We see these reports all the time in the media. Like I said, for every one of these you see, we're working on 7 or 8 cases at a CAC or law enforcement. These child exploitation stings that have been going on around the state, there's a group called Covenant Rescue Group. And what they do is they do a lot of chat. They do chatting stuff. So they'll chat it up with these guys who want to come and meet a juvenile, and they lure them to a certain location, like in this particular case it was Coleman, and then those people get arrested. So those men aren't actually talking to kids. They think they're talking to kids, and they're getting arrested for talking to kids, but it's actually the group that's texting with them and talking with them. So, but you'll see these exploitation stings, and there's quite a few of them going on in the state right now.
And I can tell y'all that has gone on here because we work with local law enforcement. Right now, it happens. So, Teresa, we're going to open up a session, so I think we might want to get to resources.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Kind of go through this quickly if you want.
Yeah, I do want to talk about bullying for just a second, just because it's so prevalent. We see that so much with kids, not only bullying in person, but also bullying online. And that's something to really talk to your kids about. And even if your kid is not actively posting something, but they're liking it, and then they're sharing it with other people, that's a type of passive bullying. That the person who's the subject of that, they think everybody is against them, right? So that's something to talk to your kids about too, about not doing that. And what's the most devastating result of cyberbullying or bullying? It's self-harm or suicide.
Did you say that passive bullying, is that what you called it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so also with all this social media, they know what they're left out of.
Yeah.
And they will post it, and they'll post it all over and how much fun everybody had, and then your child
Yeah.
wasn't there. And so that is passive bullying, really. So there's a lot of that. So and they get their feelings hurt. So they know what they're missing.
Okay, so we had a big case down in Lowndes County. It was a middle school. It was an Instagram account called a tea account. Y'all ever heard that? Spilling the tea. You ever heard that term before? Like gossip or a confessions page. So we had a middle school group, had a few followers, not that many, no post. And then all of a sudden there was an explosion of followers because somebody had posted videos of kids involved in sexual acts and adults. And so we had these kids and adults, and the people who were on that page looking at that stuff, they were kids and adults. Okay, I interviewed one of the little girls in a video that she didn't know had been done of her, and she was devastated. She was devastated about that because everybody in school had seen it. Now, you might think, well, we probably don't have that here. Before I came here tonight, I looked up Opelika High School. I found 3 T accounts. One of them is open, and you can see what the posts are. Just all you do, type in Opelika High School T, and you'll see those accounts, and you'll see what's posted on there. There are kids that are being targeted on there. There's one T account for for the middle school.
And it does go on here because I've seen it with them. And part of the bullying is pulling people in and out of the chat too.
Yeah.
You're on a group chat and then you get removed.
And I didn't check any of the elementary schools, but you might want to do that too. Because it's possible there's some out there for the elementary schools as well. Every time I go to a location, I tell people this and I say, hey, I just looked it up and there's one in at your high school and your middle school, and everybody's like, really? Well, they're out there. And so somebody needs to be monitoring those and what they're on or what they're posting. And just, talking to your kids about empathy and being empathetic of other people, that sort of thing. So I've got to go real fast right here because we got to get going to the resource part. But I do want to talk about hate speech. I want to talk about how online, hate speech is so much louder than everything else that kids hear. It's so loud. You have people that are talking about different types of religions, about gender, about all kinds of stuff like that, about race, and it's so much louder than everything else. If you look at the mass murders that we have in schools today, and if you follow those stories where they start looking into the shooter and about that shooter, what's the number one thing that they typically say about the individual? They were bullied in school. They were bullied. If you look at the mass shootings that we see across the country, like in nightclubs and things like that, what you will see are groups of individuals that are targeted because they're at that nightclub or they're at that location, and they're targeted for a reason. And most of the time, that individual has been online listening to hate speech, and that's the result. So these mass shootings that we're having every day is a result of all of this loud hate speech that we see online. Okay, like I said, I'm going fast. Let's get proactive. Our kids weren't born in a bubble. They were born into the digital world. We have to give them the tools so that when they encounter a predator, they know what to do. So let's talk about those tools. And let's talk about this too. Don't be intimidated by that person you potty trained. They don't. You pay for the phone? Yeah. I hear this always. Oh, well, we're like best friends. No, honey, you are her mother. You are the dad. You pay for this. You pay for that. They don't have a right to privacy. They may tell you they do, but they don't. No, they don't. You're paying the bills. You're doing all that. We see parents come in with all this secondary traumatic stress. They have to go to a counselor too, because they see photos of their kids naked when these investigations come up. It's terrible. It's terrible. Don't be your kid's best friend, okay? Don't do it. Be a parent. What you can do, have open and honest conversations. They need to start when they're 6, 7 years old, when they get online. And it can't be a one and done. You got to keep doing it. Turn the Wi-Fi off after 9 o'clock. How many of you thought about doing that? So, hey, the Wi-Fi's not on. If they have one of those phones, like a track phone, that all they can use is Wi-Fi, they can't use it, can they? Make them leave their cell phone out in the main part of the house. Don't let them take it to the bathroom. Don't let them take it to their bedroom. And then turn off the Wi-Fi, because they may have a second phone you don't know about. And if it's a second phone, it's not going to be a phone with minutes on it. It's going to be a phone where they can get online. They can get on the Wi-Fi to use it, okay? If somebody's given them something like that. Exactly. Keep your eyes on whatever's happening within your house. If your kid is texting with somebody and they're like turning away like this, they don't want you to see what they're doing. So, be like Catherine. What are you doing? Let me see that. Give me that phone. That's my phone. I pay for that phone.
And then, no, wait a minute. No, I didn't now. There's no reason I should have to wait. It's something I'm going to see. You don't want me to see. But I don't care getting the phone.
Okay, and other items to consider. What does your child have access to besides a smartphone? What about a gaming device where they're online with that? A smart TV. You can get on a smart TV and you can pull up all kinds of stuff. You can pull up YouTube on a smart TV. What's on your phone? Okay, I'm going to tell you about a case where we had 2 little boys. They were 6 and 8. There was domestic violence in the home. Mama's boyfriend was beating her up, so they went to a safe place, like with a friend, to stay there until Mama could get her stuff together with this guy, get her life figured out. She went and bought them tablets because she wanted to be able to communicate with them. So the guardian who was taking care of them walks in, and the older kid is like, all of a sudden real nervous and everything. She's like, "What are you looking at?" She goes over to the tablet. They are nude photos of Mom, because her phone, when she bought her phone, it's on the same network that her phone is on. They're tablets. If you have a tablet and you take a picture and it's connected to your phone, what happens? It downloads on your tablet too. So her children were seeing nude photos and videos she was sending to her boyfriend. You need to check and see if your devices are connected to each other. Because even though adult pornography is illegal, do you want your kids seeing you having sex with your boyfriend? Yeah. So I heard another story about a woman who gave her phone to her 7th grade daughter, and her daughter, she didn't think to have it, erased or anything. Her daughter could see every text message she sent. Well, she wasn't sending anything like nudies or anything like that, but she got a cancer diagnosis. So she's texting her husband and telling him she just got a cancer diagnosis, and guess who sees that conversation? Her little girl. That's how she found out that Mama had cancer. So I don't know if y'all think about that kind of stuff when you do a hand-me-down phone to a kid. You better check to see if your conversations are showing up on that kid's phone. Okay. Now we're finally to the part where we have resources. Okay, if you're thinking about, is my kid old enough to have a phone? The American Academy of Pediatrics, y'all, Look, I have this, there's a handout up here. It's got all this on it.
We're going to give y'all some resources.
It's got all that on it.
I'm here local. There's always, we're both available
Yeah.
to help y'all with this. And if you know people that want to know, because we're getting ready to get a 2-minute warning, but I'm going to ask for a 4.
Yeah, I'll talk real fast. So you can do this survey online, see if your child is ready for a phone. You can do a starter phone for your kids, and we call these dumb phones. They're not connected to the internet. They may have apps, but they're like curated apps where they can't get onto like a social media platform, that kind of stuff. A lot of kids lose stuff, so a gizmo watch might be best for them. They have 10 people they can call, and that's it, right? There's a parent group. This is a nationwide thing. It's called Wait Until 8th. Because if you tell your kid in the 7th grade, you're not old enough to have a phone, well, all my friends have phones. This is something you can get together with other parents at your school, and if you have it at least 10 that will sign this pledge, you can be a part of this group. Okay? Wait until 8th, and I think that's a great program. So this is a Bark phone. You can also, you don't have to buy a Bark phone. You can download the Bark platform, and that's going to give you alerts and stuff like that if your kids are looking at anything that might be something you don't want them to look at.
That's what my daughter's doing. It's a great resource.
So this is new from NCMEC. It's called Take It Down. If there's a kid that's sent a nudie and now they're like, oh my God, what's going to happen with that? Who's going to see it, et cetera, you can go to this website and you can submit that photo. They'll put a hash on it, and if it shows up on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, these other platforms, Pornhub, it won't get posted if it has that hash on it from NCMEC. If you are an adult and you made photos like that when you were a kid, you can still do this. So if you're an adult and you got photos out there, you can also submit them, and as long as you were a kid when the photos were taken. And if it's on any of those platforms, it'll get taken down. These are great videos. You can watch these with your kids, or they can show them at school or whatever. It's kids talking to kids about digital safety, because kids listen to other kids more than they listen to us, don't they? So these are really great videos. NetSmart is another great program. They have online gaming, and they're also available in Spanish. Are you like trying to? All right, look. This is the end right here.
Okay. 1 minute.
1 minute, okay. If you see something, say something. Remember I said the age of majority is 19. If they're 18 years old, you can report any type of thing like this. It could be child abuse or whatever. Y'all listen, report it to law enforcement, DHR, the Children's Advocacy Center, and the school, and also the cyber tip line. Report it everywhere. If you just report it to one place, it might fall through the cracks. We see that happening all the time. Report it everywhere. I enjoyed talking to y'all tonight. I'm sorry that I'm being kicked off the stage, but thank you.
Microphone.
All these years of dealing with these adults that we've been doing intervention with, that person is the child who fell through the cracks. That person is the 12-year-old from last week that didn't get what they needed. So we've got to try to stop it before it starts or when it first starts, so that we can, that's the way we're going to be able to try to end this and to eradicate it and to be able to get rid of this in our area. So, all right, thank y'all so much.
All right, let's give them a round of applause. All right, if you are not a member of Greater Peace Missionary Baptist Church, you have just learned what Clifford Jones does when he wants you to sit down, and you've exceeded your time. Look, Teresa, he does it at funerals and everything, so do not feel bad. We do want to give you all an opportunity to ask a few questions. We have 10 minutes. We want to be respectful of your time. If anyone has a question, Catherine has the microphone, and she can come to you, or I can grab a microphone and come to you. Does anyone have questions? she asked about the video. Can we send them the video through email?
Yes.
So if you signed in, we'll send you the video via email.
Yes, we'll send you all the PowerPoint.
Okay. All right. Anybody else have questions?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I would have one, very few with this issue. I mean, I've heard about it. I hope I will get involved. We're talking with some friends. Is there any way for us to be involved publicly? Like, we're sitting in front of a hotel, in front of a place that we know,
We actually do online and street outreach, our organization here locally. We are boots on the ground. And so I've got information up here, and we're going to be having a volunteer meeting in February. And so that would be an opportunity to be able to get involved locally. Yeah.
All right. Anybody else?
Are y'all surprised that it's happening here? No? Okay. It's removing the scales from our eyes.
Yeah. Okay, well, if no one else has any questions, all right. I first of all want to thank everyone for joining us this evening. It is our hope and our prayer that you've learned something that will help keep you and your family safe. The ushers are going to have a survey for you. They're out there in the back. If you could fill it out before you leave and just drop it off on one of the tables, we'll grab it shortly. There are some cookies and chips back there. I know you guys are probably hungry, so you can grab a cookie and some chips on your way out the door. And Teresa and Catherine will be around for a few minutes to answer any questions one-on-one. So. You have anything else to say since you telling people to sit down? All right. You got anything to say? Oh, okay. You quiet now? Okay. All right. Thanks, everyone, for attending, and we hope you have a great night.